My name is Amanda Kingsley Malo, and I am the founder of Politics Now.
What is Politics Now?
That's a great question. We've been many iterations, but the current one would be considered like a grassroots catalyst organization that helps elect women to municipal politics. We started in Northern Ontario, and now we've kind of it's gone rogue, and it has extensions all over Ontario.
That's amazing that you were able to organically grow that. I think that's the prime definition of grassroots, because I think it's been overused or misused.
Yeah, but it's an accident.
Okay, why is it an accident?
So
tell me the story.
So everything I do is kind of an accident. I just kind of throw things and I try it and I'm like, oh, this worked or it didn't. And so the first time that I'd ever run anything in Politics Now was the 2018 municipal election. And I ran it very traditionally because I had come from a just traditional campaign kind of school.
Yeah.
And so I ran live campaign schools in person with women. I ran them ahead of the election. I was just about to have my first baby. And so I was very pregnant running campaign schools. And then I gave birth to my daughter in April, and the first municipal election was in October. I only had one. This is one of the most ridiculous things that I say about having one child, but it's having just a little partner. So you can just bring her anywhere. So I just strap her in and she just came and did election stuff with me. And I was on mat leave and it was the perfect project. It was awesome. And then the next time that we had an election was in 2022. But by then I had 2 children and we'd just lived through a pandemic. And everything was different. My time management just couldn't look the same because there was 2 kids now. I was still on mat leave. So that was a blessing in that sense that I could do that. But I was also it just changed my perspective in the sense that I was okay, I used to be able to do this in person because I had time, but who am I not reaching because they've never had time, right? Now that I've got 2 kids, I can't be going and doing in-person campaign schools, which means we're losing really valuable people who also can't be doing that. And it's not just moms. It's women who work 2 jobs, who are we really need to have their voices in municipal politics. And so I changed the game a little bit and I did 2 things. I wrote a workbook, and the workbook gave us the chance to have something that was asynchronous. So people that wanted to kind of bootstrap their way to a campaign could do it. And I was still teaching and it was still accessible, but they could do it on their own time. They didn't have to come to a workshop. And I had also decided that I wasn't doing in-person ones at all. The way that we kind of do it is based on this. We a coalition of women in municipal politics group across Ontario. They do a lot of really wonderful campaign schools, usually live and in person, leading up to the election.
Yeah.
And I take all of those women now when the writ drops in municipal politics, which is you can register in May, but the campaign's not until October. So that gives you a lot of lead up time that you don't have when you're in the federal election or provincial election. And I train them in that part. So you have to be registered to now come and do campaign school with me online, which means that even if you've already done it with one of the other schools, you might want the refresher because after Labor Day happens, you're hitting the ground running.
And I think elections creep up on people. They don't realize how fast they are, but sometimes there's snap elections. There's a lot of elements, obviously, that
absolutely. And you're looking at sometimes I was getting people, I'd realized, because I'd done both models. I'd that first 2018 election, I'd done the in-person, then I did the virtual before. And what I was finding about the virtual before leading up to Labor Day was that I was reaching a lot of women who actually didn't think that they were going to run at all. And it was a last minute decision, a snap decision, and they were not ready for it. But they needed just as much training as those who'd been thinking about it for years.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everyone's name on the ballot. And just because you'd been thinking about it for 4 years didn't mean that you were more likely to win than someone who decided yesterday.
Yeah.
And so it was a real fun equalizer. And I realized that actually this was the most effective way forward.
And were you always politically involved, or was this something that as you were growing up, maybe developing your political consciousness, that you're you know what, this isn't right and I need to use my voice or use my platform? Walk me through that.
I tell this story a lot, so it's not going to be a surprise to anybody. I am from a very funny political family, 2 parents who are incredibly political on opposite sides of the spectrum, but who were not politicians or involved in politics or particularly political in the way that you might consider. They work in government. They're not in public policy. My mom stayed home with us until I graduated from high school. My dad has a contracting company for mining companies. I'm from Sudbury. And they just talked about policy and debated a lot at the kitchen table. And a joke that I kind of tell is my parents were the only people that I've ever known that have opposing lawn signs on the lawn every election. They would also put the 3 of us in the minivan, make us go to the polls with them where they would bicker the whole way there about canceling each other's vote. And then they would make fun of each other in the voting booth and be like, haha, like we're canceling each other's vote. And then we'd go home and we'd watch the election. And so like that was never weird to me. And I didn't know that that was weird until I got older. And people didn't talk about politics the way my mom and dad did. And I couldn't talk about that with other kids because they didn't have the language that I did. I couldn't talk about that with other parents who were like, shh, that's not polite. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I talk about this with my mom and dad all the time.
They always say, like, the 3 topics you're not supposed to talk about is money. The 4 topics you're not supposed to talk about is politics, sex, money, and religion.
Which is hilarious. I want to talk about all those things all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Those are the most interesting things. Why would we not talk about that? That's insane.
Yeah.
But like my parents, like there was never anything that was off the table.
Yeah.
What was important to them was that the disagreement was around policy. We always had the same values. Like, I mean, my mom and dad love each other very much. They've been married for like 1 million years at this point. And they share values, but they disagree on the policies that get us there.
Yeah.
And to them, it was really important that we talk and deconstruct what those policies are and debate about that as opposed to debating the values of that person.
Yeah.
And I think when I was growing up, that was a lot easier to do. There wasn't social media, like polarization wasn't a thing. I'm sure it was, but it wasn't as broadcasted as it is in the age of the internet.
Yeah. Would you say though, and this is something I've talked about a lot of people, and I have always felt when I was starting to learn about politics, like politics and policy, they were separate. There was also a fluidity with values, but I feel like right now, if you say or label yourself with a party, you're automatically assumed with everything embodied with that and those values, and there's no separation.
It drives me
crazy.
Crazy. So you were just like kind of asking about the path, and so that was just like, I've got a degree in history and religious studies. Speaking of thing that you're not allowed to talk about, I went and taught, like, was going in my career, and I'd seen this Facebook post. So it's 2014. And it was looking for community change makers. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And when I actually looked into it, it was a fellowship with the Liberal Party of Canada, which had always been at that point where I aligned. I remember looking at the sheet and being like, oh, like I could do all these things. And I'm at a point where I want to do all these things. I'd hilariously just gotten married the year before. And if you've ever planned a wedding, anybody who's ever planned a wedding will know this. It's like a full-time job. And I needed a new hobby. And I was like, oh, this is a great replacement. I'm just going to go to like campaign school. I like volunteered very infrequently before then. And I was the only person north of Barrie to get in the campaign school. And they were teaching us like how to knock on doors and how to do community organizing and that kind of thing. But because I was the only person north of Barrie, everyone in Toronto would like get together and they'd be like, I got to knock on a door. And I would be like, oh, I got to run a whole thing today. Like I ran like a whole volunteer canvas. I had I had no idea what I was doing, but like I was the first volunteer on the team before they even had candidates elected. And this is like pre-Justin Trudeau, well, he's the leader and they're gearing up.
Yeah.
So I volunteered for them and they got 2 candidates and both of those candidates were elected. And they all went to Ottawa and I went back to teaching. And I was totally fine with that. And I volunteered with the EDA. And it turns out I hate that. I was like, oh, when I first started in 2015, I felt very comfortable and confident that I could knock on a door and tell someone, like, there are policies that I disagree with.
Yeah.
That are on this platform. And I'm knocking on the door anyway. Like, because I share most of my values with this campaign or with this politician. And one of the things that my parents have always talked about, and it's an analogy that's widely used, is that when you're voting for a party, you're getting on the bus. And the bus is not going to drop me off at the door, but it will get me closest to the destination I want to go on. And if I have to transfer buses, that's fine. So I found like working with the EDA, like they're all great people, but I was just like, oh, I have to buy into this a lot more than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I like the differences and ideas and debates and the ideas, and that's comfortable with me.
Well, that's also the beauty of like democracy. And
Well,
I
yeah.
think the fun part of how our political system is structured, there's different parties and there's a lot more political fluidity.
Yeah.
That I like to say, like, it's very common for provincially for you to vote one way and maybe federally the opposite.
Absolutely.
Right?
And people tell me that all the time. And the other thing that I think that is like really prevalent in that is that I think most people who vote are not as partisan as like straight politicos.
Yeah.
I understand, being really into a party, and I understand the buy-in, and I get it. But I also think that there's so much value in being able to be like, okay, I don't agree with all of these things, and I agree with some of them, or I agree with most of them. And when I don't agree, when it's not going the way that I want it to go, I can also change my mind.
Yeah.
And hyperpartisanship does not allow you to change your mind. And I think that's really a shame.
Mm-hmm. And, going to the point of you felt comfortable talking and exploring policy and seeing your parents have this like intellectual sparring, let's say.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for parents to talk to their kids about politics? Is there an age to talk to their kids about
I talk
politics?
to my kids about politics all the time. They're 8 and 5. I don't know that they like really get it, but they listen to me, listen to the news every morning. The first thing that I do when we wake up and they're like eating breakfast is CBC goes on and we listen to what's going on in the world. And is it scary? Yes.
Yeah.
But can I help contextualize what that looks like in an age appropriate fashion? Absolutely. Like, that's good to do, actually. I think it's from, my career in teaching is that you didn't get to where you are now by not taking steps to get there.
Yeah.
And I think very much that it's my duty as a parent to help guide the steps. So just like I was making a joke the other day with somebody about how my kids take the school bus. And do I always like the school bus? No. Do I think it's important? Yes. And I think it's important when they're 8 and 5 to take the school bus, because I don't want them going off to university in 20 years and looking at public transportation going, what do I do here? They've had practice. It's not perfect practice. It's the school bus today. And when they're 13, it's us getting on the city bus and trying to navigate public transportation and doing what that looks like in Sudbury, which is not what it looks like in Toronto. Like, it's not the subway, but it's a hell of a lot closer, that end state that we're looking for of like truly independent people who know how to navigate the world without just throwing them into the subway station and being like, figure it out.
Yeah. Like I used to teach swimming lessons, and the parents would always come, like they would be like kind of frustrated that they were in swimming lessons because they're like, my parents just threw me in the water and told me just to do it, like figure it out. I was nearly drowning, and I don't know. I think there's this like older generations, maybe like Boomer and like Gen X, this like,
you just got to figure it out. Sure. But there's steps to get there. And I think that that's the same with politics. And I sometimes wonder, especially like with the civics videos that I make, I'm a firm proponent that there's no bad questions. But sometimes I get questions that like I used to answer to my students that were like in grade 7 or 8 about just very basic civic stuff that they should have gotten, but they were not getting in their educations. And I think, man, we really didn't scaffold this properly. Like, you shouldn't be 40 and asking me about this. And that's not that person's fault. Like, they are blameless in this. It's all of the systems that converge to ensure that you don't have the proper scaffolding. And I think that leads to a lot of the funny stuff that we see. And it's not funny, like it's polarization. It's like misinformation, disinformation, all of that plays a part in the fact that we're not properly scaffolding this kind of conversation.
And, why is it important for you to put out these videos in civic literacy? Because there is that gap in education. You were a teacher.
Yes.
You saw it. You've had these conversations and you've been able to take that skill, which I think is amazing and that should be absolutely celebrated. And I think more women need to look at, we don't have to just be in one lane. Like, you can take those skills and do other things and explore your passions. And I think,
well, and the beauty of that is that it's your perspective that lends itself to how it is that you're going to view the policy. And that's why we talk about the importance of representation. It's those different perspectives, those different life experiences that just make the conversations richer. If we're not giving people the tools that they need to have those conversations, they're never going to have them. It's always going to be off. It's always going to be off the table. We're going to go back to the things that you can't talk about are religion and politics.
yeah,
That's so boring because it doesn't need to be like that. Like, I'm sure that the reason that people say that is because they don't want us deconstructing those conversations. They don't want us deconstructing their notions. It's much easier to just let that lie and not dig into the systems, not dig into why women are left out, why disadvantaged people are left out, why minorities are left out of those conversations and are left out of those policies, or left out of all of it.
What do you say to someone that says, I'm not a political person, or I don't deal with politics?
I
I know what you want to say. Give me the PG version of it.
No, it's the real version that comes out of my mouth. Politics is going to do you. Politics is always going to do you, whether you're aware of it or not. Politics is everywhere. It's the air that you breathe. It's the water that you drink. It's the table that we're using. It's like the material that was sourced for this couch. Politics is everything. And once you start noticing that, you can't unsee it. And you have two choices then. You can look straight at it and be like, okay, then I'm going to do more to understand this. I'm going to do more to learn all that I possibly can about it, deconstruct it, and see where it fits in my values. Or I'm going to turn a blind eye and pretend that I don't do politics. But it's irrelevant whether you take one of those paths or whether you truly don't think that you're political. Politics is going to do you.
There's obviously a lot happening in the world, as we talked about, and we can't not see it. So I think even that comment offends me when people say that. And it's like, you got to take that step back and understand maybe where they're coming from. And I get it's overwhelming, but that's the point of dialogue. That's the point of democracy. And when we stay silent and don't hold politicians accountable or have these conversations, we're not going to see the other side.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, like, yes, I can absolutely see how it angers you.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a wrong feeling, but it actually makes me sad for them. Like, I have a lot of empathy when someone says that to me because it just tells me that they've been failed at multiple levels. I don't know how much of it is on their shoulders, to be honest.
You think there's like an element of just giving up?
I think there's disengagement. I think there's apathy. And I think both of those things are by design. I think it's much easier for the people that are in power, the people that pull those strings, for people to be apathetic, to be disengaged. A question that I used to tell my students all the time when they were thinking about these was, who does it benefit when you don't pay attention? Like, who does it benefit? Because that's who continues to make sure that you don't pay attention. Like, and that is long standing in politics. Like, we're talking like Roman era bread and circuses stuff, man. Like, this is not new. People have been dangling shiny carrots for as long as we've been doing this.
Yeah, well, wasn't it Caesar? I'm pretty sure it was Caesar that said it, the ultimate populace. But like, it was like, as long as the people have bread and entertainment.
Yeah. Is that Caesar? I think it might be Augustus.
Or was it Augustus?
I don't know, man. You guys are going to have to fact check us.
Fact check us on that. One of the
Caesars, of which
the
after
Roman
Caesar, there's many.
Yes. But it's just, it's so fundamental and critical and still relevant today.
Yes. Yeah. Like, to the point where it's been adapted for the Hunger Games. Like, Suzanne Collins was like, that is the cornerstone of the Hunger Games. Like, because it's just a continuous adaptation of how people in power treat power.